You just breathed a second ago, in and out, and you didn't even notice. It felt like nothing, like breathing empty space. It wasn't. That breath was thick, about 25 sextillion molecules, a 2 with 22 zeros after it, and some of them are billions of years old, older than the ground under you, older than the oceans. A few of them have been inside other lungs. A stranger on the far side of the earth, an animal that died before there were people, someone taking their last breath. You breathed them in, held them a moment, and handed them back. So here's a question you've never once asked, though you've done it a quarter billion times. How old is the air you just breathed, and where has it been? Start here. Air is not empty, and it is not new. We picture it as a clean, invisible nothing, a blank the world happens in. It's the opposite. Air is old, crowded, and endlessly used. Every breath is a crowd. More molecules in it than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth, and almost none of them were made for you. You didn't get fresh air. You got hand-me-down air, exhaled, recycled, breathed, and rebreathed for as long as there has been a sky. Your lungs aren't filling with the world. They're borrowing from it, a few seconds at a time. To see how old, follow the strangest part of a breath. About 1% of the air you just took in is argon, a gas so aloof it refuses to react with anything. It doesn't burn, doesn't rust, doesn't bind. And that indifference is the point. Because argon never gets used up, it just accumulates and drifts. The same atoms cycling through the sky for eon after eon. When you breathe argon in, nothing happens to it. You warm it, and you breathe the exact same atoms back out, untouched, to blow around the planet and be pulled into someone else's chest. That has a consequence people find hard to believe. The writer Sam Kean laid it out in 2017, in a book named for it, Caesar's Last Breath. When Julius Caesar was stabbed and gasped his final breath, he exhaled a cloud of argon atoms that spread, over the centuries, evenly through the entire atmosphere. Do the arithmetic, one breath's worth of atoms against the size of the whole sky, and the answer is that every single breath you take contains about one atom from that dying exhale. Not a metaphor, a count, and not only his. Every breath holds atoms once breathed by the first human who ever lived, and by a dinosaur lifting its head 100 million years ago. You are, right now, inhaling the used breath of all of history. But that raises a harder question. The argon itself, where did it come from? It wasn't always in the sky. Here's the part that turns the air into a clock. Almost all the argon up there is one specific kind, argon-40, and it was not in the air when the Earth formed. It is being manufactured, slowly, underground. Deep in the rock sits potassium-40, a faintly radioactive atom, and over immense spans of time, each one decays, half of any amount gone every 1.25 billion years, and some of it turns into argon. That argon works its way up through the crust, leaks out of volcanoes and cracks, and joins the sky. So 1% of every breath is exhaust from the planet's own slow radioactivity, atoms that spent more than 1 billion years locked in stone before they ever touched air. The sky is in part the Earth breathing out its own deep time. Now the opposite extreme. 21% of your breath is oxygen, and oxygen is everything argon is not. It is violently reactive. It rusts iron. It burns wood. Your own cells are spending it this second, which means it cannot be old. Free oxygen falls apart. Something has to keep remaking it, or the air would go stale in a geological blink. Something does. Life, for its first 2 billion years, Earth's air had almost no oxygen at all. Then, roughly 2.5 billion years ago, microscopic ocean bacteria learned to split water with sunlight, photosynthesis, and began pouring out oxygen as waste. They flooded the sky with it. Every molecule of oxygen you have ever breathed was exhaled by something alive. And most of that something is not the forest. In 1988, a biologist named Penny Chisholm at MIT identified the most abundant photosynthetic living thing on Earth, a cyanobacterium called Prochlorococcus, so small that 100,000 fit in a single drop of seawater, so numerous there may be more of them than any other cell in the sea. They, and the drifting plankton around them, make roughly half of all the oxygen on the planet, which means, quite literally, that every other breath you take comes from the ocean, exhaled by invisible things you will never see, many of them alive right now, this year. Half the air keeping you awake was made last season by microbes adrift in the dark. So look again at the one breath you just took. It is not one age. It is a collage of ages. breathed in together. Some of it is oxygen, remade within the last few thousand years, some within the last few summers. Young, restless, about to be spent inside you. Most of it is nitrogen, so stable it can linger in the sky for millions of years between uses. And threaded all through it, that 1% of argon, over 1 billion years old, leaked from the rock, already breathed by everyone who ever lived. One lungful, 3 completely different depths of time, mixed so evenly you cannot feel the seam. You breathe the entire history of the planet in a single gulp, and it feels like nothing at all. Follow just one of those argon atoms through its whole life. It began as potassium buried in rock, part of the young Earth. It sat there through the first cells, through the rise of oxygen, through every extinction the world has ever had, and somewhere in that long dark it decayed and became argon. It worked its way up, escaped into the sky, and began to wander. It rode the winds through storms and ice ages. It passed through the lungs of creatures with no names, through forests, over oceans, through cities that rose and fell. It was breathed by strangers you will never meet and, almost certainly, by someone you loved. And a moment ago, out of everywhere it could have been in the whole turning atmosphere, it was inside you. Now it's back in the room, already leaving. Its time as a part of you lasted about 4 seconds. This is where breathing stops being plumbing and turns into something stranger. You don't own your air, you never have. You hold each breath for a few seconds, long enough to pull the oxygen out of it, long enough to warm it, and then you give it back, and the planet takes it, mixes it, and hands it to someone else. Breathing isn't taking, it's a loan, endlessly repaid. You are not sealed off from the world by your skin. You are an open current, the sky flowing in, becoming you for an instant, and flowing out again to become the next thing that breathes. And because the whole sky mixes, completely, all of it in only a year or two, there is no such thing as your own private air. The breath leaving you now will be on the far side of the planet within months. Someone will breathe it. A child not yet born will breathe atoms you exhaled today. You are already silently joined to every person alive and every person still to come. Not as a nice idea, but physically, by the same few molecules passing between all of you, on and on. Every stranger, every border, every argument, you are all breathing each other. You always were. None of it stays. That is the whole quiet point of a breath. What keeps you alive is not the holding on. It's the letting go, in and out, 20,000 times a day, without a single one of them ever belonging to you. You are not a container of air. You are a place it passes through, briefly, gently, on a journey that began long before you and will not stop when you do. So sit with the ordinary miracle of it. The next breath you take will carry atoms older than the oceans, exhaust from the planet's own deep radioactivity, oxygen made this very year by unseen life at the bottom of the sea, and the used breath of every human who ever lived, of the first of us, of strangers, of someone you have lost. All of it mixed into one invisible mouthful drawn into you and handed back. You didn't earn it. You can't keep it. You just get to breathe it for a little while. The air made you, is making you now, and will move on to make the next of us. Breathe in. It is the whole world. Breathe out. You just gave it back. There is nothing you have to do with this. You'll forget it within the hour and go on breathing anyway. The one thing you were never once told how to do. But every so often, when the day goes thin and you feel cut off, alone, sealed inside yourself, you can remember what is actually happening. There is no wall between you and everything else. There is only this constant quiet trade, the oldest exchange there is, running through you in the background of every moment you have ever been alive, and everyone still ahead. So come back to where we began. You just breathed. It still feels like nothing, and it never was nothing. It was billions of years and the whole living planet, and the breath of everyone before you moving through your body while you weren't looking. Take one more on purpose this time. Feel how old it is. Feel how far it came to reach you. Then let it go, the way you always have, out into the room, into the sky, into someone else. It was never yours to keep. You were only ever a place the air came to rest. From sky to blood to you, and one breath later, on again.